All right. Welcome to Dynasty 365 podcast, the Dynasty Fantasy Football podcast for fantasyandframes.com, part of the ever-growing Fantasy and Frames empire. If you're watching later on, go subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're listening now in audio form, hit pause, subscribe, rate, and review, and help us out. I'm Brian Ford. I'm joined by my co-host Tyler Heil. Tyler, how you doing?
I am wonderful, Brian. I look forward to this show every week. Get to hang out a little bit and just talk some smack. And it's even better this week because we just get to vehemently disagree with each other for about 40 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Right on. Okay. So Keith is a fantasy and frameser as well. And he's on the team with articles and a DFS podcast. Keith, how you doing?
Doing well. Apologize for my voice tonight. In Georgia, the pollen count is outrageous right now, and my allergies are going crazy. So I sound like I'm dying. I promise you I'm not. Or going through puberty. You decide. But I will make it to the end of this.
Right on. And so before we introduce our very special guest, Tyler, what are we doing this episode?
Well, this episode, if you are an avid listener of Fourth and Frames, you will know during our weekly episodes, preparing for the week, we do something called Faceoffs, where we each take a player and debate their pros and cons, and we declare a winner of each Faceoff. We're modifying that a little bit for Dynasty 365. In this case, we'll be just calling them Faceoffs. Obviously, very creative, but we will actually each be debating the same player rather than pitting two players against each other. And we'll be focusing on our rankings throughout this show, but we're focusing primarily on the discrepancies in our rankings. So if we have a big discrepancy, one person has someone as wide receiver 1, one person has them as wide receiver 10, we're going to go ahead and debate that. And there will be a winner declared by our very special guest who you are about to introduce, Brian.
That's right. Our special guest judge tonight is Chase Vernon. Chase, how you doing?
What's going on, guys? How we doing?
Not bad. We like Tyler said, this is often the highlight of our week, and we're glad to have you with us. So you have created a lot of content over the years, and just it seemed to be rebooting and renewing. And what got you into making Dynasty content to begin with?
Dude, I've been a fan of Dynasty forever. I mean, I've been playing since 2005 or so. I mean, Dynasty wasn't really a thing. When you asked somebody if they wanted to be in a Dynasty league, they'd ask you what it was and then laugh at you because they had no idea that it even existed. And they're like, no, that sounds kind of dumb. It's kind of like the zombie leagues or the vampire leagues or all those other leagues that people are coming up with. That's where Dynasty was when I first started. And so I fell in love with it. And it became like a real passion of mine probably about 5 years ago. And I was like, man, I want to do this. I actually want to go create content somewhere. And, it's like you put it off, right? Because you're busy. You have a job. You got, whatever it is that you have to take care of your personal life. So then I just decided, hey, I'm going to go buy a mic and I'm going to go buy the stuff that I need. So that way I actually have to do it. And, just took off from there. So ended up going to Facebook and putting my thoughts out there, and Sal Lito over there found me. Big shout out to Sal Lito and the SFB Podathon. But yeah, he found me over there. He's like, dude, you got to get on to Twitter. I'm like, what's Twitter? And so that happened about 2 years ago, and got onto Twitter, and the rest is history. So it's been fun.
Awesome. So what do you got cooking now? Where can we find you and your work? Twitter, podcasts, any articles you're writing? What can we tap into?
God, I should have had my Twitter profile pulled up already. All right, so director of content, social media over there, Trophy Smack, creator of At Some Yards. You can find it over there on Twitter, where we teach kids with special needs how to play fantasy football. And then, of course, Fantasy Intervention. That's my company. You can find it at joinourcircle_. I'm a ranker over there at Dynasty Nerds, senior analyst over there at Player Profiler, aka at Roto Underworld. You guys can find all my content over there, including DFS when we get in season. And then recently, like I said, director of content and social media over there at Trophy Smack. So Trophy Smack's been a big one, been writing articles for him, putting out content just nonstop, and also helping out the rest of the team and building a team over there. We have, Nate over there, Cooter Doodle, Mike, or Daddy's Home, as most might know him. Just a slew of guys. It's been a blast putting that team together.
Right on. And for those folks listening in audio form, where can they find you on Twitter to get connected to all that?
At FF_intervention. You guys can visit my Twitter profile and go to any one of those links. They are on there.
Right on. And real quick too, one thing that I found interesting was you have a stat for pass catching running backs that you've created. Tell us a little bit about that, because we're going to talk about a couple pass catchers in a second here.
Yeah, so I designed a thing where for DFS, like I could do it in my head, but I couldn't replicate it because I didn't know how to use Excel or anything like that. So last offseason, I taught myself how to do coding and data entry and decided to compile all the stats and build a formula to where I could tell which pass catching running backs to play up against which teams. The rate hit at over, I think it ended up being 83% success rate. I think I deemed the success rate being over 8 points scored in the receiving game alone. And that's full point PPR, obviously. So, yeah, if a running back scored at least 8 points through the air, then that was considered a successful week, deemed by the difference of scoring between an RB3 and an RB2 in the pass catching game. So, that's it's called the DOSE score, the dump off containment efficiency score, DOCE, and it's been absolutely wild getting off the ground. I actually am tearing it all down right now and rebuilding it so that it makes it easier for me to do data entry, and I can also start to formulate the weeks and be like, okay, for the past 3 weeks, this player or this team has been really bad up against pass catch running backs. This player's been hot when it comes to catching the rock. I think Joe Mixon went through some of that. Meanwhile, you have a slew of data that I just want to make it easier for me to do. So right now it's a little bit torn down, but it should be up and running and even more efficient than what it was in 2021.
Right on. And one more thing before we get on with the show here. So I have a somewhat funny chuckle anecdote that involves me and Chase. So this was probably like toward the beginning of, I don't know, maybe the 2020 football season. I wasn't creating any content or anything like that. I was just, I was FF junkie, and I, did a lot of fantasy football and followed people and that sort of thing. And you were tweeting back and forth with Linda, and you're saying, "Oh, you got nothing to do. Come on to this," right? And you put a StreamYard link like publicly on Twitter, right? I thought it was a front end thing where I would like click on it and be a viewer. Little did I know, I didn't know StreamYard from anything. I popped in and boop, I'm in the show. And you're like, "Hey, the junkie's here," and I'm like, Larry Monkey. I think that night Larry Monkey was on. And
we were probably all drunk, like hanging out, like doing one of my stupid 11 o'clock shows or something like that, where I was just super bored. We were in the middle of COVID, so we had nothing to do. And I'm a bartender. I like going out. I like talking to people and stuff. So I was having a few drinks, and I used to do this probably once every like 3 or 4 weeks. I would just post a link out there and tell a bunch of people to come on, and it would be like 6 to 8 of us just hammered on the live stream, not making any sense, but just having a good time. And that's what I loved. I loved the camaraderie. I loved just having fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, Linda and her friend were on, and their handle was drunk bitches, and and I found myself talking about DFS. I was lucky I was a DFS degenerate at that point. So yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing. I love that. Wait, so was that your first show ever?
That was the first time I ever was on any sort of fantasy content, anything. It was accidental, amazing. Right? Yeah.
That's so cool. See, you just got to jump in. Like I went and bought my equipment, so I was forced to do it. You just ended up going into a live stream without even realizing it. You just got to go all in sometimes.
There you go. Yeah, just stumble into it. All right. So we're going to get down to these rankings debates. Just I like to put a little disclaimer when we're talking about pre-draft rankings. Like, we're going on talent, what we think they are as a dynasty asset as of now. I think maybe this year more than others, Draft Capital and Landing Spot are going to shuffle these rankings around. So I may, be very vocal about James Cook being RB14 right now, and then who knows in a couple weeks I'm sort of warming up to him. But we're having some fun, and so that's the point of tonight. So let's talk just real briefly about our rankings. Keith, start us off. 1 minute or less. about your rankings. What are you seeing? What are you surprised at? What's the trend? Any themes going on?
So I think the quarterback and running back classes are weak. I think the receiver class is extremely strong. Same for a few defensive positions. I think it's going to be a fit draft that I think you're going to see some really unusual picks, at least by, the big boards from some of the biggest experts, in the business, because I think teams are learning that if you have a need and there's only 2 or 3 top level players at that position, they're going to, be more willing to take a risk and take them early. I will also say, though, that I really did my rankings by I have certain things that I look for in quarterbacks, receivers, and running backs, and I use those to base my rankings off of, as well as I was looking at Dynasty and their value in fantasy starting year one, moving forward.
Right on. Okay, Tyler, what are you seeing when you're looking at things?
So when I've been going through these guys, first of all, tight ends are weak. There might be 1 or 2 guys really worth a rookie draft pick, and then maybe a couple dart throws. I don't feel great about them. Quarterbacks, it's been said over and over again, not a strong class, and it's not. People are not wrong about that, but I still think we are absolutely going to see 3 of these guys go in the first round, and they're going to get an opportunity to play and play early. So they're definitely worth looking at in your rookie drafts, primarily super flex. Running backs, I'm not quite as low on the running backs class as everyone else. You still got the guys who I think can be number ones at the top, and the Breece Halls and Kenneth Walkers, spoiler alert. But then there's this bucket of like 8, 9, 10 guys that are all good at one thing or have really good skill sets to be supporting backs. And they're not going to be number one guys, but I think they can absolutely be contributors in the NFL and can be guys that you can put into your starting lineup. And Keith kind of said it with the receivers. There's no like super duper Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Jerry Jeudy people in this class, but there's a lot of really good.
Jameson Williams would like to have a word.
Yeah.
He can talk to me after he gets into a squat rack for about 2 months.
He doesn't need to get in the squat rack when he's blowing by guys.
All right, save it for the face-offs.
Yeah, I like the receivers here. I think they're going to be contributors, especially at the NFL level, not just at the NFL level, but also for your dynasty fantasy football team. So I like a lot of these guys coming in the first and second rounds of your rookie draft.
Okay. Yeah. I not much to agree. I agree with most of what's been said, and I don't really have too much to add, except that I found this is the deepest dive I've ever taken on rookies since I played Dynasty. And while I do have certain guys that like I'm high on or low on compared to consensus, I'm doing a show later this week on my other Dynasty podcast with somebody who has these outlier rankings, right? And I realized comparing me to him in consensus, I'm pretty chalky this year, and I don't like to be like that. I kind of have made a life out of being in disagreement with the establishment. So I don't know how I feel about that. But Tyler, where can folks find our full rankings, not just these discrepancies?
So they can find our full rankings over at fantasyandframes.com. We have up our rookie prospect rankings. We have up our dynasty rankings. Later in the year, we'll be putting up our redraft rankings. So you can find all of our rankings over there.
There's a word you use there started with R. What is?
There's this game called Redraft. You draft a new team every year. It's a little weird. It's a little luck based, but it's pretty fun. You got to try it.
Right on. All right, ready to rumble?
Let's do this.
Ready.
All right, Chase, you ready to make important decisions? Okay. All right. Yeah. There's a lot riding on this.
Do you take bribes, Chase?
Do I take what? Bribes?
Bribes, yeah.
We can talk about it. We got the private chat rolling. We can bid. No, but it was kind of funny. Like Tyler said, like he's pretty chalky compared to most years, and I feel like everybody's just all over the place. Like there's not too many hot take guys outside of maybe the ones that are talking about putting Walker over Breece Hall, but I wouldn't even consider that much of a hot take because I love Walker. Like I love Walker. I would never put him over Breece Hall, but I absolutely love Walker. And there's the group of wide receivers that is that second or third tier, depending on how you tier guys, is just all over the place that although it's chalky, I feel like it's still not chalk because you can just be kind of like all over the place with it. So I'm excited to hear y'all's point of view.
Right on. Yeah. Okay. So the first face-off is me versus Keith. And so this is sort of we're basically going to make this a Malik Willis face-off, but I noticed I have Pickett QB1 and Willis QB3. Keith is reversed. So Chase, how do you want to do this? Do you want the low guy to go first, the high guy to go first, or?
Well, I don't think there's much of a case to. Actually, let's go ahead and go with the Malik Willis guy going first. Whoever has him number one.
Okay. Keith,
All right.
that's you.
That's me. Again, real quickly, I just want to go over what I look in a quarterback. I'm always looking for quarterbacks with strong arms. If you look at all the good young quarterbacks in the NFL, that is something that every one of them has. Athleticism is more and more important in the NFL. Again, if you look, most of the good young quarterbacks in the NFL have the ability. They don't have to run, but they have to at least have the ability to buy time. And then the other thing for me is decision making. And whether that is turnovers or just being able to at least have a basic understanding of how to run a pro offense and read a defense. So Malik Willis is number one, and honestly, it's by default. And I hate to say that, but this is a class where I don't think there is any superstar quarterbacks. Malik Willis, so at least has potential. And he has two of the three things I talked about. He has a very strong arm. Obviously, he is a freak athlete. But he has a great arm, could really move. If I wasn't so down on the rest of the class, I would, I don't think it would be enough to be number one, to be basically a project, because he is a project. It's going to take 2, maybe 3 years before you see returns on this guy. But especially when you played at a small school, which that normally is a bigger ding for me, especially when you're quarterback. But I don't think there's any special talents in this class besides him. And he is a special talent. Like, he has a unique set of skills that you do not see every day. So I have him at number one. I understand, again, this is a 2-3 year project. So you are taking him, and I hope whatever team drafts him, whether it be Pittsburgh, Carolina, whoever, don't throw him to the wolves. Like, if you want him to be great, you need to give him time. He needs to sit. He needs to learn. He needs to catch up. I mean, he's basically been playing high school football, didn't even really get college, and now he's going to be in the NFL. But I would take a chance on a quarterback with a high ceiling over another quarterback in this class that I just don't think has a very high ceiling. We kind of know at best the rest of the QB class is probably going to be, maybe a starter. I don't even think a great one.
All right. And so what you're hearing there, folks, is our Oscar style play off the stage music. We're trying to do these.
Tyler, keep that queued up for me, buddy.
So I'll try to be quick. Like I said, like, I like Willis, and everything that you said about him is true. Cheat code, strong arm, athleticism, right? But when I look at this quarterback, I see mechanics, decision making, footwork, accuracy, all need work. He's not throw ready when he's climbing the pocket. He takes too many sacks. He doesn't recognize the field and progressions well, et cetera, et cetera. He played at Liberty, right? I mean, that's group of 5 competition, but that's like Liberty, right? And I think out of all the quarterbacks, because he has the upside, has the biggest bust potential. So, he's an upside play, and that's it. I think he's got zero floor. I'm usually a bad team if I'm picking at like 102 or 103, so I can afford to wait. But the only way I'm taking him there is if I can afford to wait, and I have a couple, 2 or 3 good quarterbacks I feel okay with as bust insurance, and also, as he takes time. Like I said, he's QB3, not like, I'm putting him QB8 or anything like that. But I'm not taking him before, I don't know, maybe 107 or something. So I'm not going to have much Willis. So that's it.
Would you take any of these quarterbacks in the first round if you were a GM?
I'm not an NFL GM. I'm a dynasty manager. I don't.
I answer that question.
So real quick, I do have a question. Are we talking about 2 quarterback leagues, like, Superflex leagues?
Yeah.
Like dynasty draft. Okay, I just want to make sure Superflex is the rule here.
Yeah.
So between you two, this is the deal with Superflex. If I'm drafting a quarterback, right, and I'm considering him, in the first round whatsoever, this quarterback, if I'm considering them in the first round, has to be at least a top 12 quarterback throughout each season. And the only one that I'm considering, to Keith's point, because he does have the rushing upside, he does have the big arm, is Malik Willis. So I'm going to go with Keith on this one. I think that if you have to draft a quarterback in the top part of your draft as either the pick 1, 2, or 3, if he ends up making it to 3, you got to go with Malik Willis on this one because of the upside potential. Now, I do think that Malik Willis has the biggest bust potential, to Brian's point, when it comes to his mechanics, when it comes to climbing the pocket, when it comes to the fact that he did play at a small school. But I'm willing to, if I need a quarterback, I'm willing to take that risk. And, any of the other quarterbacks don't offer that for me outside of Willis.
Totally cool. I get that.
Did I do that right, guys? Is that how?
Yeah, no, that's great. Awesome. Yeah, love it. Yeah, let's keep it flowing. Next,
right, cool. I just wanted to make sure that I understood it right. So Keith's the winner. Does Keith get a point? Is there like a scoreboard that we should be?
Sure. Well, it's a little unfair because I wound up being in on 7 of the 8 ones just because Tyler and Keith picked what they wanted to do, and I happened to be part of a lot of them. So I kind of have.
Keith is winning right now.
But okay, yeah. So let's
stop the game right now.
Why not? Keith has a point. Screw it. Okay.
I got a scoreboard going. Let's go.
Good. All right. Next debate is Tyler Algiere. Tyler Heil has him at RB3, and I have him down at RB10. Who do you want to hear from first, Chase?
Wait. You said Tyler Algiere is RB3?
For me. For Tyler, yeah.
Okay, I need to hear this. Tyler, you're up. You are up.
All right, so
I like Tyler Algiere, but I need to hear this.
All right. So here's my case for Tyler Algiere as RB3. Essentially, going into this process, all you're hearing from people, talking heads, are Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Isaiah Spiller, everyone else. When I kind of dove into this running back class, I watched Isaiah Spiller, and I was very confused. I didn't know what everyone was seeing. He didn't look overly athletic. He played well. He was okay. He doesn't do anything great. He's not particularly good at catching the ball. He can run pretty well, but he didn't impress me. So I'm like, okay, I don't buy that it's just these 3 and the rest of everyone else. So I dove into these guys or watched Tyler Algiere, and he really impressed me. I had honestly never heard of the guy. I had no idea who Tyler Algiere was. So in case you didn't know, he is a running back that went to BYU. He is a big boy, 5'10" and 6'8", 224 pounds. He ran a 4.6 40. Not overly fast, but he is fast enough to get the job done at that size. Remember, everyone's dynasty darling Jameson Williams ran a 4.6 as well. So speed is not a disqualifier at the running back position. It's more of a check the box. Can you keep up? Unless you're someone like Saquon Barkley running a 4.38. Anyway, so Algiere does have some good speed though. He ran an 11.14 100-meter dash in high school. So he's not slow. He can get up there in speed. He did a lot to go to college and play at BYU. He wasn't highly recruited, even though he was super successful in high school. He got a walk-on spot at BYU. He was paying his own tuition by working at Walmart. So, I know this doesn't have a lot to do with the player, but just who he will be as a professional is indicative of that. He's extremely successful on the ground. His last 2 years at BYU ran for 2,731 total yards on 426 carries. I'll do the math for you. That's 6.4 yards per carry. He led the FBS in rushing touchdowns his senior year with 23. He had 42 receptions in his final 2 seasons for 373 yards. If you watch this guy play, he can catch the ball well. He has the athleticism, turn around, make the catch, turn upfield, and get going, and really have some yards after the catch opportunity. Just natural hands when he's doing that. As I was watching this guy, he really reminded me kind of a juiced up James Conner. And when you look at the measurables, they're very similar. Conner was huge. He was 6'1", 233 coming out of college. But Algiere is faster. He could jump higher. He can jump further. He's just more of a twitchy athlete than Conner ever was. And he kind of does the Conner thing of he's not fantastic at one thing, but he's really good at everything. And he's going to be a very useful back for a team. And I will close on 33.8% of his carries in 2021 went for either a first down or a touchdown. That is a crazy stat to me. So he is extremely successful on the ground, even when he doesn't have Zach Wilson under center throwing the ball, creating open lanes for him.
Okay, so I think you did a real good job with a positive spin on Algiere. I still don't think you justified him as RB3, but I will do my best here. Yeah, a lot of good things going for him. Vision, elusive for his size. Pretty good pass pro, et cetera, right? Contact balance is okay, right? Lacks burst, straight line runner, not fast. Needs to improve his pass pro for the NFL. Not a natural hands as a pass catcher. He is your backup 2-down guy. He is a slower Chuba Hubbard with better vision. Tyler just wants the next 2 backs after the big 2 to be named Tyler because he's got Algiere and Beatty 3 and 4. And I think that's part of it and it has to be called out. And I can't justify having him ahead of guys like Rashad White, even Spiller, even Beatty and B-Rob. I can't find a compelling reason to do that. I don't know if I'm low with him at 10. That's consensus, but I just don't see it. I think 3 is a reach. That's all I got.
All right, so Tyler Algiere also, I believe, led the league over the past 2 seasons with yards after contact. He also had the second most, or maybe it was third most carries of 20 or more yards in last season as well. So I think there's a lot here with Tyler Algiere, and I do think that he is more than just like the next Benny Snell, the sluggish, ground and pound guy. I can't say that I have him at 3 or even that close to 3, but I definitely don't have him far back as 10. Mm-hmm. So listening to the argument put up over there, I do think that he has a little bit of vision, and I do think he has the twitchiness as Tyler mentioned. So I think I'm a little bit closer to him being RB3 than RB10 at this point. So I'm going to give this one to Tyler.
Okay.
Yes.
It's close.
0 for 2.
It's close. It's not like it's not like I'm that far away from it, but I think just off of Tyler's points that he made, I think that he had a stronger argument as well.
Sure.
So absolutely. I'm going to go in with Tyler on this one.
I will concede that as well. Mine was pithy and succinct. So let's go to Garrett Wilson, and this is me and Keith. I'll get into it when we talk about it. But Keith has him at wide receiver 4. I've got him as my wide receiver 1. Chase, who do you want to hear from first?
Which player is it? I'm sorry.
Garrett Wilson.
Let's go ahead and go with wide receiver 1.
Okay. That'd be me. So one thing to think about with these wide receivers is honestly, the way I see it, the first, 4, 5, 6, I could see going in almost any order depending on what you look for in your wide receivers. For me, it's if I'm gonna spend a pick on my wide receiver one that's going to be, I don't know, 104 or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm conservative, but I want a floor. He's a polished NFL ready receiver with a good floor, good hands and separation, contact balance, well-rounded, has pretty good play strength. Ran a 4.38, 36 vert. He needs to tweak his route running a little bit, and he does have some focus drops, but honestly, like, there's not too much of anything else I can really knock about him. I think all things considered, he is, the most polished NFL-ready guy. Maybe you could argue Olave is, right? I think he's your floor play as opposed to guys like Burks and London, but I still think he has a high ceiling as well, which makes him attractive. Keith's top three all have some kind of question marks around them for me.
You don't think Wilson does?
Well, we'll get there. I think he's going to be a weekly starter. I think he's going to have a ceiling that'll win you weeks. Again, like I said, the top 4 to 6 are close. I think, but to have Wilson behind a Drake London or a George Pickens, I can't justify that. So Garrett Wilson is my dude.
Just want to start by, again, he's an amazing talent. I don't want people to think I'm like crapping on the guy, but he was talking about he wants Williams to hit the weight room. This guy needs to hit the weight room. He's not very physical. I do not like what I see against man coverage, particularly pressed physical corners. He's played 3 really good defenses that had physical corners in his career. Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl his freshman year, 4 for 47. 2020 in the semifinals again against Clemson, 2 for 52. And then Alabama in the national championship, 3 for 50 yards. So if you look at the rest of his games compared to those, when the competition went up, he didn't necessarily perform the way he had. He needs to work on his route running, which is not surprising when you're that athletic. You're used to getting open just by being extremely athletic. If he can get better at route running, I think he absolutely can be a can't miss guy in the NFL. He's not good after the catch, especially for a guy that has his athletic ability. He is consistently tackled immediately once a defender puts their hands on him. You look at somebody like Jameson Williams, who led all of college football in yards after catch. If you're going to be a burner, that's great, but you have to be able to do more than just catch the ball down the field. You have to be able to make defenders miss, which you can do that, but you also have to be able to break tackles, which he does not do that well. And I worry about him in 50-50 situations. If you look at him on film and plays at the ball, again, against more physical corners, he doesn't come up with a lot of them. And again, this is not a knock against Garrett Wilson. I think he's a great talent, but I don't think he's as likely to succeed. That's the first 3 guys that I have on my board. I think Drake London is without a doubt the safest pick in the draft. He's just going to be a good pro. Jameson Williams, I think, is going to be amazing, but I understand with injuries and stuff. And then George Pickens, people forget he was a number 1 prospect, number 1 receiver before he tore his ACL before the season started. And he had an amazing career, and he is a prototypical wide receiver. So that's why I have Garrett Wilson at number 4.
All right, Chase, it's your call.
You're on mute.
Muted.
Oop, my bad. Sorry, guys. So you would have had me like right away if you would have brought up draft capital, Brian, because I think that he will end up being the first wide receiver off the board. And there's a good chance that we see Green Bay or a team like that trade up and grab him. However, he does have major issues. Now, we can hammer away all day long that his major issues revolve around route running, which both of you guys brought up. My issue becomes is, hey, we talked about the upside that he can do, with the ball in his hands, and we talked about, what he offers in terms of wide receiver. So I'm going to go with Brian in this one. He's not my wide receiver 1, but I think you made a better case overall for him. Although he did struggle up against bigger schools, and he struggles with drops, and he struggles with route running. I think that with his draft capital and his ability and the points that you made about what he can do, I think I'm going to give this one to Brian. But it's very, very close.
What receiver do you have him at?
I have him at 3.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was actually closer to Keith than Brian on this one, but I just thought that Brian made the better argument.
Awesome. All right. And I, by the way, like, I love this. It's getting me different perspectives, and I'm rethinking some things and adding to my knowledge. It's a lot of fun. All right, so if you haven't had enough of me and you're not sick of me yet, I get to argue about Desmond Ritter. He is climbing draft boards, both in fantasy and the NFL. I have him still stubbornly at my QB5, and Tyler has him at QB2. Chase, who do you want to hear from first?
Wait, who has him at QB2?
I do.
Tyler.
Oh my God, Tyler! All right, you're up.
All right.
All right. So I have been on the Ritter bandwagon for a while. I don't feel super strongly about any of these quarterbacks, but the thing you have to look at, like Keith mentioned earlier, what do these guys have that has been successful? It's a strong arm and athletic. And Ritter has both of those. He's a big, tall guy, 6'3" and 3/8. He ran a 4.5 240, 36-inch vert, 127-inch broad jump. Like this guy is a hell of an athlete, and there's no denying that. And he throws the ball well. He's developed every single year that he's been at Cincinnati. He's a 4-year starter. He started ever since he came in there. He's had big-time success on the big stage. His career numbers are 87 touchdowns, 28 interceptions. That's a 3.1-to-1 ratio. He's only missed one game due to injury in college, regardless of, his body type, which he needs to add some weight. That is first and foremost. He needs to add some weight, but, I don't want his athleticism to suffer too much because that's what makes him so attractive. He was an AAC Rookie of the Year. He was a 2-time AAC Player of the Year, 2-time first-team All-AAC. He was a team captain in his senior year. Just to keep rattling things off, he threw for over 10,000 yards in his career, ran for over 2,000 yards and 28 touchdowns in his career. And he's climbing draft boards for the actual NFL right now because of who he is. He's a first-team academic All-American. He's a very mature person. He's about to be married. He has a daughter. Good Lord. When I was a senior in college, that was the furthest thing from my mind. I was doing some ridiculous stuff at that time in my life. So, kudos to him for just doing that. But the big thing with him when he's running the Cincinnati offense is he's reading the whole field. He's doing stuff that all these other quarterbacks aren't being asked to do. Malik Willis is asked to go out there and make a play. It's kind of like what Cliff Kingsbury has been doing with Kyler Murray for the past 4 years. Kyler, go do something. And it's been like, Malik, go do something. Pickett has 1 year. And I like seeing a track record with these quarterbacks. He can be a little erratic at times with his accuracy, but I think that's a matter of calming down and getting his mechanics right, getting his feet right, getting his delivery right. And I think that can absolutely happen. And we've already discussed the cheat code at quarterback. He has it. He's running 4.5 240. He's an uber athlete. He's going to be able to get a first down with his feet on 3rd and 12. It's just going to happen. It's going to happen time and time again with the type of athlete he is. So I really feel good about Ritter going into the NFL draft. He's going to get drafted in the first round, whether it's by the Steelers or the Saints or whoever you want to name. But he's going in the first round, and he's going to have a chance to start and be successful.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pick up there. He's going to get draft capital, which means he's going to have a long leash, which means, he's attractive to you for that reason. In a superflex draft, et cetera, et cetera. I think the NFL is okay. Is like it's maybe an overreaction to his cheat code athleticism, and he can they like him because he's mature and married and a kid, fine, but you got to deliver on the field. He's an accurate deep, inconsistent accuracy intermediate. His mechanics need work. He's not good with his first read. He goes to his legs too quickly. Slow processing to get to the pass. Not good when his first read is covered. Fast but not elusive, which means he's going to get hurt. I I just see this as people are falling in love with the athleticism and the leadership qualities and all that, and that may get him a long leash. But in the end, I think guys like Pickett, Corral, they're going to have better careers and longer lasting value for you in Dynasty. And I just can't justify putting Ritter at QB2. I might slide him over Howell to put him at QB4, but that's as far as I'll go.
So this one for me is purely based off of pretty much where you guys have him ranked at this point, because I mean, there's a lot of points that were missed. Like if Tyler brought up the fact that he didn't lose a game at home, like that was a big aspect as to like where he could end up getting drafted, such as like the Steelers, etc. So like that was like a big point as like, oh, he can end up with the Steelers, with higher draft capital. I think that would rise him up my boards a little bit if he ended up in that situation. He was able to sit for a year or two behind Trubisky. But I mean, like, what is the difference between him and Kellen Mond? Like, if he goes round 2 or round 3 and he ends up behind a coach and or a coach that doesn't really like him because an organization drafted him, is there a chance we could see Kellen Mond 2.0? And I mean, their college stats are almost identical in terms of rushing, but Kellen Mond was a better passer, right? So although Kellen Mond didn't have the same arm strength, he was way more accurate, and he displayed off his arm strength, showing that he had a little bit bigger one. So my comparison for him is actually Kellen Mond with a bigger arm and a lesser processing speed. And for that reason, I cannot put him that high on any of my draft boards. I'd much rather take a risk on a Sam Howell or Kenny Pickett that could offer me something. But either way, I'm not drafting those guys in the first round anyways. Like there's one quarterback that's going in the first round, and that is it, even in Superflex. Maybe if I have one quarterback and I need a second one, I could see an opportunity, but it won't be Desmond Ritter because he's going to need time to develop. And I don't want a quarterback that's going to sit on the bench for 2 to 3 years, and that's where I see him sitting. So I'm going to go with Brian on this one.
All right, a second point for me. Sometimes a blind squirrel finds a nut. Okay, up next we have the aforementioned George Pickens. And this one is a Tyler and Keith show. Keith has him at wide receiver 3.
I'm just kidding.
And Keith has him at wide receiver 3. Tyler at wide receiver 8. Who do you want to hear from first?
Who has him at 3? I need to hear that. Whoever has him at 3. Keith, you're up first, man. You got him at 3? What's up?
You're going to find out why.
All right. Again, reminding everyone that Pickens, if he doesn't tear his ACL before the start of the season, in the preseason, and for a majority of his junior season, he was ranked as the number 1 receiver in this draft class by most scouts on their board. Pickens is the best outside receiver in this class. It's not just because of his size or the fact that he has the best hands in this class, without a doubt, but because he played on the outside for a majority of his routes in college, where if you look at most of these other guys, they lined up a large percentage of their snaps in the slot. Pickens played 8% of his snaps, not on the outside, for his entire basically 2 years and some change in college. As a true freshman and sophomore, he led the Bulldogs in receptions both years. He racked up 85 passes for 1,240 yards and 14 touchdowns. As a Georgia Bulldog fan, I want to remind everyone, Jake Fromm and Stetson Bennett were the quarterbacks of those teams. These are not guys with strong arms or really somebody that's going to take a lot of chances down the field. He only made 2 starts in that 10-game window. So he had 85 receptions, 1,200 yards, and 14 touchdowns over 10 games. I've heard some say he's not a burner, which I guess technically is fair at 4.47, but he's over 6 feet tall, over 200 pounds. I don't think that's necessarily fair to say. The tape shows he has a good burst off the line. He runs route like a veteran in the NFL, very polished in his route running. He uses his frame extremely well to get open. He has a huge catch radius. Go watch any of his highlight reels. It's unbelievable the catches this guy makes. Not only does he make them, he makes them look easy. He does as good a job as any receiver I've seen entering the NFL in a long time at protecting their quarterback from turnovers and bad passes. I love a film that I watched on him, and it was just incomplete passes and the way that on bad throws, Pickens would make sure the defender would not be able to make an interception. He would block the defender, block the corner safety from getting to the ball. I think that shows basically how wise he is as a wide receiver. He truly understands the position. He averaged over 14 yards per receptions his first 2 seasons. Again, Fromm and Stetson Bennett are not guys that throw it down the field. They don't have strong arms. Georgia's an offense not known for airing it out. I think the fact that he put up those numbers, the yards per reception numbers, it speaks volumes to his ability to get open and catch everything. I think he is a prototypical outside wide receiver. He's going to be a good number 2 maybe for his first or second year. I think he will absolutely be a number 1 receiver on a team in this league and a number 1 receiver in fantasy football within his first 3 seasons.
All right. Well, I guess I will go now, Keith. That was a heck of a argument for George Pickens. It was very colored by the fact that you are a Georgia fan, and I appreciate that. He's a tall guy. I don't know where you got the over 200 pounds number. He weighed in at 195 at the combine, I believe. You did say the 4.47 40, which, guy that's 6'3", that's fast. I think we disagree on the route running. I think he does a good job getting open to running deep, catching 50-50 balls. He does a good job with that. He sometimes has trouble getting out of his break at the top of his routes. The upsetting part is you had to use his career stats that sounded like a season. So it was at 90 receptions for 1,300 yards. He just, he doesn't quite have the production that you want to see out of someone that you're going to rank wide receiver 3.
If a program runs it 70% of the time, it's hard to put up big numbers.
This is my time, Keith.
Just saying.
Yes. Gavel, gavel, gavel. Out of order.
He could certainly be really good in the NFL. He could be, but I just haven't seen it. It's all based off pedigree and where he was ranked coming out of high school and what people thought of him after his freshman year. And I just haven't seen it. And I know he was injured in 2021, but I would like to see more career production from him. And, is he going to be a good pro? He's been kicked out of games. He's been suspended from games. He's just done stupid stuff. He spent 1.5 years committed to Auburn, and then he decommitted to go to Georgia. I don't want to say that says a lot about him, but is he having trouble committing to things? He just seems like he's a little all over the place, and I prefer my professional athletes to be very professional and take their job very seriously, and he just leaves some question marks for me. I'm not saying he's not going to do that, but it doesn't give me enough confidence to rank him that high.
Yeah, so like we're talking about, somebody ranked super high because they're married and they have a kid, and then somebody else that can't do commitment. So it's definitely a little bit up in the air over there. But I honestly, the thing that I was really looking for in this the counter argument was the second year production, because when people say, hey, he tore his ACL, before his junior year, before he came back, whatever the case was, people don't take into account that he had a really bad year after his first one. And his first one, he broke onto the scene. Everybody thought he was big. And then he just never hit what he should have hit, regardless of how the program runs their stuff. We've seen receivers such as Donovan Peoples-Jones, right, come from Michigan and not have the same effect that they expect to have at the professional level. Listen, good players get the ball. Like, coaches get the best players the ball, right? And they make sure that they get the ball in their hands. They make sure that they produce at a high level. We're talking about goal line targets. We're talking about many other things that
he played 6 games though and had 36 receptions, 513 yards, and 6 touchdowns.
Don't interrupt.
That's pretty good.
That's fine.
Games.
I'm saying that if you're going to say he didn't get production, I don't understand. If he played 10 games and put up those numbers,
it's fine. It's just not the numbers that you want to see out of your third prospect off the board. I'm not taking it on him that early. He's actually borderline first round, probably more of a second round pick for me at this point, depending on how everybody falls. So, the thing that I was looking at was the overall production outside of his rookie year and outside of the year with the ACL injury, and it just was not there. I'm going to go with Tyler on this one.
And I'm going to pour it on Keith by adding that another thing that he can't commit to is blocking. So,
that's
number
another big
six.
part.
Number six on our board here. Probably going to. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do James Cook, and then I'm going to give Chase the choice of our 7th and 8th and who he wants to finish with, because for time we'll have to do that.
Why don't you guys just keep it to a minute like we talked about? Come on now.
I think I'm doing a pretty good job with that. But all right, so James Cook, Keith the Homer has him at RB5. I have him down at RB14, which I think is low for sure. But who do you want to hear from first?
We'll start out with you.
Okay. So like we talked about with the RB class, like there's a swath of players that you could really, mix and match and are somewhat interchangeable, and draft capital and landing spot will determine some of that. I think Cook is one of them, but for now, I just don't see why people are in love with him. He's projected for the 3rd round on NFL mock draft database, and I'm like, okay, 4.43. 40, very good receiver, very good acceleration, runs good routes, etc. Right? Then all I see people talk about is no second gear, not elusive for somebody who's that fast. Is not great in between the tackles. Wasn't asked to even pass pro much. Slender frame, not good with contact. Et cetera, et cetera. He's a scat back. He's a committee back. He will be in the NFL and contribute because he can be a receiver. And he will hang around your dynasty rosters. But I just can't see him as 5, ranked ahead of Robinson, Haskins, Rashad White, Beatty. I just don't see that. And courtesy of Dallas Hyder, who's going to be the guest on my other pod that I talked about earlier, here are some facts about James Cook. He had a very good stat line on national primetime TV against did not against a big opponent, right? 6 carries for 32 yards, although 4 receptions for 112 yards and a TD. So we'll give him that, right?
Yeah, okay. I was like, what?
What? Right. But
really shot yourself in the foot there, Brian.
But outside of that game, he averaged 12 receiving yards per game in 2021. He has never eclipsed 12 carries in a game in college over 4 years, and has only reached double-digit carries 5 total times in that span. And he is 195 pounds. To have him ahead of Brian Robinson or Beatty or Rashad White or even Algiere, who I don't even like that much, like I just can't see it. I just don't buy the James Cook thing. I think he's more one-dimensional than people are willing to say. And yeah, he'll stay on as a receiver and gadgety and stuff, but RB5 can't do it. You, sir, are a homer.
Hey, real quick, you said all gadgety and stuff, which I think is hilarious.
After he said he didn't have a good game, but he had 110 yards receiving.
I misread my notes. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Where do you guys have each one of these players ranked? What's the argument?
I have them 5, and it's if I can. Is it my turn or not?
Yeah. Wait, 5 and what?
I have 14.
Okay, go ahead. You're up, Keith.
So I don't think this running back class is that great. And again, I thought we were taking into account dynasty stuff. And I'm looking for a receiving back. There is, sorry, I'm out of place here. There was 36 running backs in NFL that averaged at least 3 targets per game. 13 averaged 4.3 or more. Many of those were backs that were not lead backs for their team. Guys like J.D. McKissick, Michael Carter, Myles Gaskin, Naheem Hines. They all carved out a true role when their team is a third down or passing situation back. I would argue that Cook is going to be better than all those guys because of his athletic ability. He's a great one-cut rusher. He's going to do great in any zone blocking scheme. He would, not be this high in my rankings if the class was better. But I just only see a handful of backs that can be 3-down backs in the NFL out of this class. And if, Cook Cook doesn't appear to be big enough to be an NFL back. I understand saying that. They're concerned about his size, his workload. Same things are said about Alvin Kamara. The same things are said about Devontae Freeman. And they turned into every down backs. So I'm not saying that Cook is going to do that, but I think at worst, he will be a contributor to your dynasty roster immediately as a real passing weapon. He was lined up 27% of his snaps, either in the slot or out wide. There's talk that some teams have considered using him actually as a slot receivers, which will give him more opportunities. And again, he excelled against top competition. 2 of his 3 highest graded games were against Alabama. The game that he mentioned he did not have good against Michigan, he turned 10 touches into 140 yards in a national semifinal game. And he's 0 to 100 really fast, has great start and stop speed, can cut on a dime. No, he's not going to make any guys miss by breaking tackles physically, but he's absolutely going to make miss guys with his cuts and stuff. And you put this guy like say the Bucs draft James Cook and give Brady another weapon. Look how he's used Gio Bernard. Look how he's used Shane Vereen. Look how he's used all of these guys through his career. James White. He could have 60 to 70 receptions as a rookie easily if he lands on the right team. That's why I have him 5 when you compare him to the rest of the backs, who I don't think are going to be true 3-down backs anyway. So I want the best receiving back basically right below that point of the top 4.
Okay.
So, Keith, you brought up some great points. Actually, my comparison form is kind of like the reverse, I suppose, of Jaden McKissick, right? So we have Jaden McKissick, who started off as more of a runner, less of a pass catching back. He developed that over time, or maybe no, I'm sorry, it was the other way around. More of a pass catching back, kind of developed his running throughout college. For James Cook, it's somewhat been the opposite to an extent, although he's maintained a lot of consistency. And for that, I'm gonna give you the points mainly because it's tough to have these players ranked amongst anything without landing spot, because like you brought up, the class is so bad. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's a chance right now. God, James Cook's probably right around RB7 or RB10 for me, somewhere in that range. But he has a better chance of increasing in my rankings pending the landing spot than he does of decreasing. I don't think he really moves at the needle if he lands in a bad spot, but he could end up going through the roof if he lands somewhere like, I don't know, the Falcons or the Bills or something like that, where they could be looking for, a replacement for pass catching back or an immediate one. You brought up the Buccaneers as well. But regardless, I'm not taking him before the 3rd round, because you're going to see the 2nd round completely slewed with wide receivers. So, if he's your running back 5, this is what's scaring me off. If he's your running back 5, he might go in the early 2nd round for you. For me, he has to be 3rd round or later. I'm giving this to Keith on a technicality, but it's very, very close as to where you would actually draft him. Keith, you got this one.
Okay. All right. So we're going to land the plane now. I'm sorry.
Where Keith, we actually have James Cook at the same spot at RB5. It's crazy. Running backs, I think 3 to 10 could change on a dime.
So crazy.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah.
It's so crazy because they're all they're pretty much all of them. I'm not going to say 3. I'm going to say 5 to 10 are pretty much all in the 3rd round pick range for me. Guys like Brian Robinson can actually move up to the mid-2nd. And I have Brian Robinson ahead of him already, but Brian Robinson can move up to mid or early 2nd because I think the NFL is going to love him, although fantasy gamers hate him. So he's going to end up with a starting role at some point, in his early career. And if Brian Robinson goes in the 3rd round, which I think is very possible, we're talking about pushing some of these wide receivers back. But if he ends up in a bad spot, James Cook could easily fall into the top 5 for me. I still think it's a technicality, but Keith gets the win on this.
All right. So that'll do it for us tonight. We're gonna skip the last 2. No Calvin Austin. Sorry, Keith.
Those are my 2 favorites.
All right. So we want to thank Chase for coming on, especially with short notice and doing such a great job. A couple of more plugs for you, Chase. Where can we find you and your work?
Go check it out over there at fantasyintervention.com, at @FF_intervention on Twitter, and go subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go check that out. It's youtube.com/fantasyintervention and youtube.com/trophysmack.
All right. And Keith, what you got going on? What's your Twitter?
At Keith Fleming, all spelled out. Finishing up a profile on James Cook, and then moving on to the quarterbacks with Malik Willis
Okay. Tyler?
on Fantasy and Frames.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can find all our rankings over at fantasyandframes.com. I'm just finishing up a Garrett Wilson prospect profile, so we should be seeing that here in the next couple of days. Those are pretty much it. I got to knock out a few wide receiver profiles before the draft so we can get ready for it.
Okay. You can find me at ffjunkie_ on Twitter. Rankings, of course, on Fantasy in Frames. And as far as articles go, I'm pumping out some Dynasty Target articles. So I'm going to tell you why you should love guys like Albert O and Derek Carr and that sort of stuff. On the 26th, next week, we're going to have our draft preview show, and it looks like we're going to have our rookie mock the next week on May 3rd. On the 28th, night one of the draft, we will have a Fantasy and Frames live stream. We're going to have all the cooks in the kitchen, and that should be chaotic and fun.
Anytime the Falcons are drafting, it's not fun, Brian.
And other podcasts are on the network at FIF Pod Network, but I want to highlight our IDP podcast, Shoot the Gap, premiering this Thursday, the 21st. Subscribe, rate, and review us and all the other lovely Fantasy and Frames podcasts in the empire. And finally, happy birthday, Jorge!
Happy birthday, boss man!
Happy birthday! Come on, happy birthday!
All right. That'll do it for us. It's a wrap. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.